Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. It's a new year and new possibilities abound. But already in the new year, we have a big bombshell of a story. It's the first one I'm covering, and it is the cancellation of the high-speed rail project between Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and Singapore, which already, has led VP in UMNO, one of the largest political party in Malaysia, to claim that it is a sign of government weakness. And not to be outdone, another UMNO member, this time Youth Chief Muhammad Hairi Mat Shah in Johor UMNO Youth, decries the murder of the Johor economy as the project is shelved. Murder, I say. So, of course, huge deal for Johor natives like myself. And it was something that I think everybody was looking forward to on both sides of the causeway in Singapore and Malaysia. So it is a big deal, and everybody's scrambling to understand what happened, why was it cancelled. And well, here in the Malaysia's leading business portal, the Edge Markets, says here the HSR project is cancelled as Singapore cannot agree with changes proposed by Malaysia. Yes, that's a very straightforward reading, but what exactly does that mean, right? Both countries could not reach an agreement on several changes that the Malaysian government proposed. So we understand that there are several changes proposed. And what were the contents of that? Okay, blah blah blah. Compensation has to be paid because apparently this is a thing. Even in for big companies, would that want to say you have a listed company and you want to undergo a merger with a different company? Typically, when you are committed to the process, there will be fees, payable if either party cancels the process for whatever reason. Because once you're really committed to it, you incur a lot of costs, and also you want to make sure you want to demonstrate commitment and you want to hold the other party to a similar level of commitment. So there's always a kind of fees involved. Said to be among the changes, finally, proposed by the Malaysian government was changing alignment to link the HSR to KLIA airport. So it was believed that the undertaking the project with new alignment as opposed to previous plan. So sorry. So here it says that Malaysia is likely to go ahead nonetheless with the new alignment, going from KLIA all the way to Johor Bahru. So although the article promised, several changes, that the Malaysian government proposed it or were the cause of the cancellation, I didn't get a single reason from it, which is very unfortunate. However, a minister in the Prime Minister's department in Malaysia, Mustafa Mohamad, he's in charge of the economy portfolio. He promised to release the full amount of compensation Malaysia must pay to Singapore for cancelling the HSR. He said it can only be done after the matter is finalized because, there will be some evolving changes. You will try to negotiate a settlement. So he said it will be significantly lower than the $270 million Singapore dollar figure quoted by Transport Minister Ong Ye Kung. There's a lot of pressure to reveal the amount, but it will surely be revealed one day. Yes, Mr. Mustafa, there is a lot of interest for sure. So what do I think that the alleged multiple reasons have not really materialized, but if you've been following the news, you've probably already seen it. And turns out that the man we turn to for answers is none other than Singapore's Transport Minister Ong Ye Kung, who stepped forward to say that the removal of Assets Co was Singapore's main concern when Malaysia proposed changes to the project. He said, because neither country has the expertise and experience in operating the HSR, true, we agreed under the HSR bilateral agreement to appoint a best-in-class industry player through an open and transparent international tender to assume the role of the Assets Co. Once appointed, the Assets Co will supply the train system, operate the network, ensure the appropriate priority is given to cross-border HSR service vis-a-vis Malaysia's domestic service, and be accountable to both parties. And this is the real meat of it, I think. So as we understand, the project, was proposed some time back. There was a lot of negotiations, and changes were, often brought up by Malaysia's government, asking for changes, asking for, ways to reduce the cost. My understanding was that the initial 110 billion ringgit price tag was brought down to 60 billion. And that's a huge discount. It's like practically 50%, half off. It's a big deal. And along with that came other requests like, okay, we want to, instead of having one company in charge of the assets that's accountable to both parties, Malaysia was requesting that we want to have an assets company accountable to us. So we will have our own and you can have your own. Of course, that's totally unworkable. And here's why. So the assets company will supply the train system. Of course, you would not have two companies supplying the train system, right? So that's an obvious no-go. Operate the network. Of course, you would have one company operating the network. They'll buy the trains and they'll operate the trains. They'll be responsible for making sure trains run on time, all that kind of thing. Then there's ensure that the appropriate priority is given to cross-border HSR service vis-a-vis Malaysia's domestic service. This is an odd one coming from Mr. Ong Ye Kung, because I don't understand how the company is responsible for ensuring that appropriate priority is given to the cross-border service, because that surely falls on the Malaysia's transport ministry, or the appropriate authority to ensure that the appropriate priority is given. Surely the HSR company, the Assets Co, can lobby for it. They can request for it, but it's absolutely not within their control. And here's another perspective on this that I think will illustrate why the Assets Co is so important. That this is the deal breaker for Singapore, because when this rail line is built, most of it will be in Malaysia. I mean, obvious. So far, so obvious. But that puts Singapore in a very precarious position, because you don't own the land on which the rail network is built. You are just you practically have just one endpoint, a terminal. And even though this terminal is very important, because you can't just have one terminal in any given railway line. A railway line needs 2 points. You theoretically, if you take the position of a negotiator to the extreme, you might say, well, Malaysia could always pull a fast one and build a terminal in Johor Bahru. And then, in the event that there's some negotiation that they cannot come to terms with, then they can just still use their rail line. But Singapore will be left having an expensive terminal and a whole lot of infrastructure developed around that terminal, because that's the way things are done in Singapore. A lot of infrastructure, a lot of developments, commercial developments, residential, are put around the train stations. In Singapore, it's the MRT, but yeah, the train stations are the hub of neighborhoods here. So understandably, if you have one that goes all the way to Kuala Lumpur, this would be an international, hub. And thus, it would be extremely important to make sure that you retain as much control as possible for this rail line. And part of that would involve being really, really close to the assets company. And if the assets company is answerable to their paymasters in Kuala Lumpur, then Singapore has no control over that. Even if Singapore has an assets company, what will the assets company do? Maintain that little bit of track in Singapore and the terminal? It will have no say in what goes on in Malaysia. So clearly, this is, a deal breaker. It had to be done that the project is cancelled, because this will not do. It would be too risky, right? It's not that as if, we have to have this company, or or nothing because of some, obscure reason. No, it's pretty clear. You need to have that control. And although you can, in a negotiation for something involving billions of dollars, you can talk all day long about the trust between two, governments and two countries that have so much history between them. But in the end of the day, billions of your dollars, billions of and lots of people's livelihoods will depend on it. So you can't take the risk of having too little control over the project. So Assets Co had to be answerable to Singapore as well as Malaysia. And that is actually a terrible place to be for any company that takes on a project, because you'll have two bosses, which, as anyone can tell you, who's ever worked with competing bosses, that's just impossible. You'll never make both parties happy, and most likely both will be very unhappy. So it's very difficult to find the right kind of company for that. And presumably you can imagine that, if you're going to find the best in class industry player who knows their stuff and is capable of managing, two very demanding clients, then surely they will come with a bit of a premium. And already we know that the Malaysian government was extremely, watchful about costs. Cost is such a big deal that it came up repeatedly. Even just reading about the topic, it comes up everywhere. So it's no surprise that Malaysia would push as hard as possible to keep costs under control, and part of that involves, making sure that the company that manages the assets is answerable to Malaysia, so that I don't need my German engineering, I don't need American-made systems. I'll just go with the Japanese one and the Chinese one, and maybe it won't be the warranty won't be as good, and the compatibility is harder to find people who are well trained in these. But I'm willing to accept that. But that is totally at odds with what were priorities for Singapore. So how I would like to wrap this up is to say that on the surface of it, it didn't seem very clear why this project ran into trouble. But I think once we look past when we really just take a step forward to think about it, it's quite clear. There's no sense of, it's very easy for, I think, Malaysians especially to immediately think of corruption. Everything is saddled with corruption. But it's not necessarily the case here. It looks like this is a pretty straightforward, understandable topic. And the reasons for it are very, very conventional. And working in a big company, this will be quite normal for you. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for listening. Hit the like button, subscribe if you enjoyed my video. I'll talk to you again real soon in this wonderful year, 2021. Bye-bye.